The waiter had just placed the cake in front of me when my dad decided to say it. Not quietly. Not privately. But loud enough for the entire table, and the people at the next one, to hear. I mean, let's be honest, he said, leaning back in his chair with that familiar half-smirk. Out of all my kids, Emily's the least successful. The words didn't land all at once. They settled slowly, like something heavy pressing down on my chest. My sister laughed. My brother didn't even try to hide his smile. My mom looked down at her plate like she didn't hear it. And just like that, my birthday dinner turned into something else entirely. My name is Emily, and I'm 31 years old. Before I tell you what happened next, I just want to say this: if you enjoy stories about family betrayal, hidden truths, and moments where everything finally flips, consider subscribing to the channel. Only if you genuinely connect with these stories and value them. Because what happened that night didn't end at that table. It was just the beginning. I remember staring at my dad for a second, waiting for him to laugh it off. To say he was joking. He didn't. Instead, he took a sip of his drink like he had just made a completely normal observation. I felt my face get warm. Wow, I said quietly. Okay. My sister, Rachel, leaned forward with a grin. Oh, come on, Emily. He didn't mean it like that. Then how did he mean it? I asked. Rachel shrugged. I mean, you know. You've just always taken a different path. Different path. That was the polite version of what my dad meant. My brother, Jason, chimed in next. To be fair, you're the only one not making six figures yet. There it was. The comparison. Always subtle. Always dressed up as a honesty. I nodded slowly. Right. Because money is the only way we measure success in this family. My dad laughed. It's not the only way, he said. But it's a pretty important one. My mom finally spoke, softly. Let's not do this tonight. But it was already happening. Because once my dad said it out loud, everything that had been quietly building for years suddenly had a spotlight on it. I looked around the table. Expensive restaurant. Downtown Chicago. Jason in his tailored suit, talking about his latest real estate deal worth over $850,000. Rachel scrolling through her phone, probably checking emails from her marketing agency clients. And me. Still wearing my office dress from a long day at work. Still the one they never quite understood. Remind me again what you do, Emily, my dad asked, even though he knew the answer. I stared at him. You know what I do. I know, he said. But say it. That's when I realized something. This wasn't a careless comment. This was intentional. He wanted me to say it. Out loud. In front of everyone. So I did. I work as a product analyst for a mid-sized tech company. Jason smirked. Mid-sized. Rachel added, and how long have you been there now? 3 years? 4, I corrected. My dad nodded slowly. And your salary? I felt my chest tighten. Dad. What? We're family. That sentence. We're family. It's always used right before someone crosses a line. I took a breath. About $78,000. Jason let out a small whistle. Rachel tried to hide her reaction, but I saw it. My dad nodded again. See? That's what I mean. There was no anger in his voice. That almost made it worse. It's not bad, he continued. But compared to what your brother and sister are doing. He didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. I sat there quietly for a second. Then I asked the question I probably should have asked years ago. Do you think I'm a disappointment? The table went silent. My mom looked up quickly. Emily. But my dad didn't hesitate. I think you've settled. That hit harder than anything else he had said. Because it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was calm. Certain. Like a verdict he had already decided on a long time ago. Rachel reached for her wine. Okay, this is getting intense. Jason leaned back. Dad's just being honest. Of course he was. Honesty. Another word that sounds good but cuts deep. I nodded slowly. Okay. And then something inside me shifted. Because for the first time, I stopped trying to defend myself. Stopped trying to explain my choices. Stopped trying to earn their approval. Instead, I just observed. The way Jason kept checking his phone. The way Rachel avoided eye contact when things got uncomfortable. The way my mom stayed quiet to keep the peace. And my dad. Sitting there like he had just said something reasonable. That was the moment I realized something important. In my family, success wasn't about effort. It wasn't about integrity. It wasn't even about happiness. It was about visibility. Money. Status. Titles. And if you didn't have those things, you were quietly placed at the bottom. Even if no one said it out loud. Except tonight, someone finally did. The waiter awkwardly stepped in. Should I cut the cake? My mom forced a smile. Yes, please. Candles were lit. Everyone sang. I smiled for the sake of the moment. But inside, I felt completely disconnected. Like I was watching my own life from the outside. Halfway through the cake, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't have answered. But something told me to. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I walked a few steps away from the table and answered. Hello? Hi, is this Emily Carter? Yes. This is Daniel from Horizon Tech. My heart skipped slightly. Horizon Tech. That name mattered. A lot. Is this a good time? He asked. I glanced back at the table. My family was still eating. Still talking. Still living in that version of me they had decided on. Yes, I said quietly. Go ahead. I'm calling regarding the senior product director position you interviewed for last month. Everything around me went silent. Even though the restaurant was still full. Even though people were still talking. I couldn't hear anything except his voice. We'd like to offer you the role. I stopped breathing for a second. Sorry, can you repeat that? We'd like to offer you the position, he said again, slightly amused. I leaned against the wall. Okay. We were very impressed with your strategy presentation, he continued. Especially your work on the market expansion model. My mind raced. Because that presentation. That was something I had worked on for months. Something I had almost not submitted. We're offering a base salary of $165,000, plus performance bonuses and stock options. The number didn't feel real. It was more than double what I was making. Take your time to think about it, he said. But we'd love to have you on board. Thank you, I said. I'll get back to you soon. We ended the call. I stood there for a few seconds, just processing. Then I looked back at the table. At my family. At the people who had just labeled me the least successful. And for a brief moment, I considered walking back, sitting down, and saying nothing. Just letting them continue believing what they believed. But then I remembered my dad's words. I think you've settled. And suddenly, I didn't feel like staying quiet anymore. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at my phone like it might disappear if I blinked. $165,000. Senior Product Director. Stock options. For years, I had been the safe one in the family. The one who didn't take risks. The one who didn't aim high enough. And now, without them knowing, everything had just changed. I took a slow breath and walked back to the table. No one noticed at first. Jason was talking about a new property deal. Closing next month, he said. Should flip for at least a $120,000 profit. Rachel nodded. That's actually impressive. My dad looked proud. Of course he did. That's what success looked like to him. I sat down quietly and picked up my fork. My mom glanced at me. Everything okay? I nodded. Yeah. For a moment, I thought about just letting it go. Finishing dinner. Going home. Accepting the offer quietly. But then Jason said something that pushed me over the edge. You know, he said, not even looking at me, if you ever want help getting into real estate, I could show you the basics. Rachel smiled. Yeah. You could start small. Maybe like a $50,000 investment or something. I set my fork down. I don't need help. Jason chuckled. Everyone needs help starting out. I looked at him. I'm not starting out. That got his attention. Oh, he said. Then what are you doing? I paused for a second. Then I said it. I just got a job offer. The table went quiet. Rachel leaned forward slightly. What kind of job? Senior product director. Jason blinked. At your company? No. My dad frowned. Where? Horizon Tech. That name landed differently. Because even my dad had heard of them. A fast-growing tech company that had been in the news for the past year. Rachel's expression changed first. Wait, seriously? I nodded. Jason sat up straighter. What's the package? Straight to the point. Of course. I met his eyes. $165K base. Plus bonuses and equity. Silence. Real silence this time. The kind that feels heavy. Rachel leaned back slowly. Wow. Jason let out a low whistle. That's actually really good. Actually. I almost smiled. My dad didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me. Studying. Recalculating. Like he was trying to fit this new information into the version of me he had already decided on. That's a big jump, he finally said. It is. How did that happen? There was something in his tone. Not pride. Not exactly. More like confusion. Like this outcome didn't match his expectations. I applied, I said simply. Jason shook his head slightly. No, there has to be more to it. There isn't. Rachel spoke next. Did you negotiate the offer? Not yet. You should, she said quickly. You could probably push it to $180,000. Now she sounded interested. Engaged. Because now the numbers were worth paying attention to. My mom smiled softly. That's amazing, Emily. I looked at her. Thank you. My dad was still quiet. Then he asked something that didn't sit right with me. Is it stable? I frowned. What do you mean? Tech companies can be unpredictable. I almost laughed. Because 10 minutes ago, I was the least successful. Now suddenly, my job was risky? It's a leadership role, I said. With a strong company. He nodded slowly. I'm just saying, bigger isn't always better. Jason jumped in. Dad, it's Horizon Tech. They're not going anywhere. Rachel added. Yeah, that's actually a huge opportunity. My dad leaned back. Well, if it works out, it's good. If it works out. That was the closest thing to approval I was going to get. And strangely, I didn't need more than that anymore. Because something had shifted inside me. For years, I had been trying to prove my worth to them. To earn their validation. To show them I wasn't a less But sitting there, watching how quickly their attitudes changed based on a number, I realized something. Their version of success was conditional. And I had finally reached a point where I didn't need to chase it anymore. Dinner continued, but the energy had changed. Jason started asking more questions about the role. Rachel gave me advice about negotiating contracts. My mom kept smiling at me like she was relieved. And my dad stayed mostly quiet. Observing. Processing. When the bill came, Jason grabbed it. "I got this," he said. Then he looked at me and smirked. "Consider it a celebration." I smiled slightly. "Thanks." But I noticed something. For the first time, it didn't feel like he was doing me a favor. It felt like he was adjusting. Repositioning. Because the dynamic had shifted. After dinner, we walked outside together. The city lights reflected off the buildings. Cars passed by. People laughed. Life moved on like nothing had happened. But something had. My dad stopped near the car. "Emily." I turned.
"Yeah."
He hesitated for a second. Then said, "I didn't mean to embarrass you earlier." I held his gaze. "You didn't embarrass me." He nodded slowly. "I just want you to reach your potential." There it was again. That idea. That I hadn't. I said quietly. He didn't respond. Because for the first time, he didn't have a counterargument. We said our goodbyes. Hugs. Polite smiles. Normal family behavior. But underneath it, everything had changed. That night, I went home and sat on my couch in silence. I replayed the dinner in my head. Every word. Every reaction. Every shift in tone. And the more I thought about it, the more something started to bother me. Because yes, the job offer had changed their perception of me. But it also revealed something deeper. Something I hadn't fully processed before. The favoritism. The constant comparisons. The way decisions in the family always seemed to benefit Jason and Rachel more than me. It wasn't just about money. It was about patterns. And once you start noticing patterns, you can't unsee them. I stood up and walked to my desk. Opened my laptop. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't open my work files. Instead, I opened something else. A folder I hadn't looked at in months. Family documents. Old emails. Financial records. Things I had saved over the years without really knowing why. At the time, it had felt unnecessary. Now, it felt important. Because something about tonight told me this story wasn't over. Not even close. And whatever came next, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be as simple as a promotion call changing the room. I didn't open that folder right away. I just sat there, staring at it on my screen. Family documents. It looked harmless. Almost unnecessary. But something about the way my dad had spoken that night, the way Jason and Rachel had shifted so quickly once money entered the conversation. It made me feel like I had missed something all these years. Not a moment. A pattern. And patterns don't just appear overnight. They build slowly. Quietly. Until one day, they're impossible to ignore. I clicked the folder. Inside were files I had saved over time without thinking much about it. Old emails. A few scanned documents. Some bank-related PDFs my mom had once forwarded to all of us for transparency. At the time, I hadn't questioned it. I trusted them. That was the thing about me. I always trusted my family. Even when something felt slightly off, I explained it away. They mean well. It's not intentional. They'll be fair. That belief had followed me for years. Until that dinner. Until my dad said I had settled. I opened the first file. It was an email from about 2 years ago. Subject: investment allocation. I frowned slightly. I didn't remember this. I clicked it open. It was from my dad. Sent to all three of us. Jason. Rachel. Me. I started reading. After reviewing our finances, your mother and I have decided to allocate funds to support future growth opportunities for each of you. That sounded normal. Fair. I kept reading. Jason will be receiving $120,000 toward his real estate expansion plans. I paused. I didn't remember that. I kept reading. Rachel will be receiving $95,000 to support her agency scaling efforts. My chest tightened slightly. Then I read the next line. Emily, we believe in your stability and consistency, so we are confident you don't require additional financial support at this time. I read that sentence twice. Then a third time. At the time, I must have accepted it without thinking. Maybe I even felt proud. Stable. Consistent. Responsible. But now it sounded different. Now it sounded like an excuse. An explanation designed to justify unequal treatment. I leaned back in my chair slowly. $120,000. $95,000. And me? Nothing. Because I didn't need it. That might have been true. But fairness isn't about need. It's about intention. And the intention here was clear. Support the ones they believed in. Ignore the one who would be fine anyway. I opened another file. This one was a bank statement summary. Joint family account. I scrolled through it. Large transfers. Dates. Amounts. Then I saw something that made me sit up straight. A transfer of $50,000. From the joint account. To Jason. Dated about 8 months ago. There was no email about this. No discussion. Nothing. I searched the folder. No explanation. I checked Rachel's. Another transfer. $30,000. 6 months ago. Again, no email. No explanation. I felt a slow, steady anger building. Not explosive. Not emotional. Just clarity. Because suddenly everything made sense. Jason's success. Rachel's rapid business growth. The confidence. The way they spoke like they had built everything themselves. They hadn't. They had help. A lot of it. And not just small support. Significant financial backing. Quietly given. Without discussion. Without balance. I sat there for a long time. Just processing. Because this wasn't about jealousy. I didn't want their money. I never had. But what I did want was honesty. And fairness. And neither of those had been part of the equation. I opened one last file. This one caught my attention immediately. The file name was simple. Property Trust Draft. My heart skipped slightly. Property? Trust? I clicked it open. It was a legal document. Not finalized. But detailed. I started reading. Family Asset Distribution Plan. I scrolled. This trust outlines the intended distribution of real estate holdings and liquid assets. Then I saw the breakdown. Jason, primary beneficiary of investment properties. Rachel, business equity and liquid reserves. Emily, personal savings allocation. I stopped. Scrolled back up. Read it again. Emily, personal savings allocation. No property. No business equity. Just savings. Which likely meant whatever was already in my name. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Because this wasn't accidental. This was planned. Structured. Documented. And I had never been told. I checked the date. 3 months ago. 3 months. That meant while I was working, building my career, living my life. My family had been quietly deciding a future where I got less. Not because I failed. But because they believed I didn't need more. That belief. That quiet assumption. It hurt more than anything my dad said at dinner. Because it wasn't just words. It was action. I closed the laptop slowly. Then opened it again. Because I wasn't done. Not anymore. For the first time, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was thinking strategically. Because if there were draft documents, there were probably finalized ones somewhere. If money had been transferred quietly, there were records. If decisions had been made without me, there were conversations. And conversations leave trails. Emails. Messages. Legal notes. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Dates. Amounts. Documents. Everything I had found. Not because I planned to confront them immediately. But because I wanted to understand the full picture first. That was the difference now. Before, I would have asked questions. Trusted answers. Accepted explanations. Now. I wanted proof. Because once you see a pattern of quiet decisions, you stop believing in coincidences. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. Hey, just wanted to say congrats again. That offer is huge. I stared at the message for a second. Then replied. Thanks. A few seconds later, she responded. Dad didn't mean what he said earlier. I looked at the screen. Then typed slowly. I think he did. There was a pause. Then 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, her message came through. You know how he is. I smiled slightly.
Yeah.
I did. And for the first time, I was starting to understand exactly how he was. And more importantly, how all of them were. I put my phone down and looked at the notes I had written. Numbers. Documents. Patterns. A quiet system of favoritism that had been running for years. Unspoken. Unchallenged. Until now. Because now I knew. And knowing changes everything. I didn't confront them the next day. Or the day after that. Instead, I did something they didn't expect. I got organized. Because if my family had spent years quietly building a system that benefited them, then I was going to take my time dismantling it. Piece by piece. And when the moment came, it wasn't going to be emotional. It was going to be precise.